Hey everybody, this is JDGaming, back with my own spin on Grandsoil Psychics. So those of you who've been following my channel for a while know that I am this huge psychic card aficionado. I love summoning the Naturia monsters, and the fact that the psychics are all Earth means that I have this really consistent engine that lets me bring out some of my favorite cards in the game. And then, of course, the fact that psychics are just so versatile means that you can use them for a variety of, life point manipulation, gimmicky decks, some stall decks, some fast-paced synchro decks, and even some interesting builds like this deck. So basically, the concept of Grandsoil as a boss monster in Psychics was popularized by Jeff Jones in 2012 when he got second place at a YCS at the beginning of a format when Emergency Teleport first came back to 3. Now, it has since then fallen off the competitive radar, but I don't necessarily think it's so much that it's not consistent enough so much as people just don't like this play style. From my experience from trying this deck out and comparing it with other psychic builds, I feel that it is very different from other types of psychics, mainly because you have to aim for the 5 Earths in your grave, so you tend to overextend or do things that you normally wouldn't just so you get Grandsoil live, and then when he's live you have to abuse him as much as possible so that you can actually, win with your beat sticks. So for those of you who don't know, essentially Grandsoil is a card that's kind of like Dark Armed Dragon. He reads, you need to have 5 monsters exactly that are Earth in your graveyard in order to special summon him. When you do, you get to special summon any monster in either graveyard. So he's a copy of Monster Reborn with 2,800 attack points, and you're able to bring out as many of him as you want as long as you remain with 5 Earths in your grave and as long as you have copies of him in your hand. Now, he does have a drawback of when he leaves the field. You do skip your next turn's battle phase, but the whole point of this deck is essentially load your grave while bringing out some powerful monsters like Naturia Barkion to lock down traps, make sure your Grandsoil stick, and then, things you already have, the Grandsoils you get plus the things you recruit are typically enough to win the game. So that's the aim of this deck. So I'm going to go through my deck profile real fast, just an alphabetical style deck profile, and then I'll follow up with just a few minutes to talk about some of my choices and why I chose them for this particular build and why I decided to play them basically with my playstyle. I'm going to explain my reasoning. So with that, let's get started on the deck profile. So in this deck we play 2 copies of Card Trooper, obvious for milling purposes, 2 copies of Gores, 3 copies of the Beat Stick himself, 3 Max C, which I will get to in just a moment, 1 Neospatian Grand Mole, 1 Tect Psyblocker for searchable negation, 2 Psychic Commander as level 3 tuners, 2 Psychic Jumpers as level 2 tuners, 1 Redox because everything is Earth, and he just is an MVP for Earth Graveyard Modulation, 3 Serene Psychic Witch, the main floater of the deck, 2 Creature Swaps to abuse that float ability, 3 Emergency Teleport to get all our combos started, 2 Forbidden Chalice to combat Moral Tax and Shaddolls and basically everything, 3 Instant Fusion for consistency in our Synchro Summons, 1 Mind Control to get around pesky cards and punch holes through your opponent's defenses, 3 MSTs to kill Clifforts, all their back row, and yeah, basically, 2 Dichotomies to restock your deck, to get rid of graveyard monsters so that you get back down to 5 if you go over, and for more draw power, 3 Duality for consistency since you don't have to special summon. There are many nice little resting points in this deck for safe survival. And then, of course, 1 Soul Charge. Over in the extra deck, we have 1 Armades to get rid of pesky set monsters and just hand traps like the Bujin cards. 1 Naturia Beast, Barkion, and Landois to stop spells, traps, and monster effects respectively. Goyo Guardian for his generic huge beat stick potential. Synchro material stealing is nice, and he's an Earth, just like these guys, so if they hit the grave, Grandsoil. Black Rose Dragon, for obvious reasons, not so great in this deck compared to a plant deck, but still great. Stardust Dragon, I'll explain that in a bit. Scrap Dragon, Crimson Blader, Leo, then we're playing 1 Mech-Whipped Angineer, 1 Mecha Phantom Beast Dracossack, 1 Fusionist for level 3 fusion, Carbonala Warrior for a 4 fusion, and Practical for a level 5. And now just a couple minutes to talk about these cards. So obviously the deck is focused on Grandsoil. Because he has the most stringent requirements of the deck, everything we do, whether it's setting monsters as a defense, special summoning some synchro monsters, or whatever, is trying to set up earth monsters in the graveyard. So here's the ultimate goal that we have for this particular build. Card Trooper is important in this strategy because you use him to obviously load the graveyard. He lets you draw cards to hopefully get you into your Grandsoil before it's too late and you have too many earths in your graveyard. All around, the fact that he's an earth is a nice bonus as well. Max C is important in that he is an earth that you can send to the graveyard at any time in the game, which basically means that if you have 4 earths in your Grandsoil is instantly live thanks to this card. It also makes Pot of Dichotomy live since he's the only insect this deck plays. You could throw that 3rd type in the graveyard as late as your standby phase, the turn you want to play Dichotomy, which makes Max C a must run in this deck. However, Max C is obviously used as a hand trap, which means he's supposed to be reactive to the opponent. That means that, in my opinion, this deck is highly dependent on the format you are playing in. Right now, you will not see Grandsoil Psychics as a popular choice in the metagames because Max C is not a popular choice against Clifforts. Yes, you can play it against Satellar Knights and you can play it against Burning Abyss, but those aren't, reasons to main deck 3 Max Cs all the time. Maybe it is for your locals, maybe it is for some tournaments, but not every tournament. And so when your major matchups like Clifforts or Shadal's even, instances where you wouldn't necessarily main triple Max C, you could start to see why this deck becomes less powerful. The key card in your deck that reacts to your opponent happens to not be viable. Then we have Psyblocker. Now this thing you basically play 1 copy of because you can call any 1 card and negate that card or basically prevent it from being used. It's like Prohibition, except it also prevents things from being applied if they're already on the field. If your opponent has Vanity's Emptiness, you call Vanity's Emptiness and all of a sudden you're allowed to special. If your opponent has Jinzo on the field, let's say, you can call Jinzo and play traps. Obviously not in this deck, but it gives you an idea. You can call any card that's in your way and block it. Thunder King, let's say, or El Shadal Winda. Lets you get around a ton of stuff. Nice thing is, since Serene Psychic Witch is a floater, where if she dies, she can bring out Psyblocker, you're basically able to search for your 1 copy of a card that gets around so many situations, and it's like main decking a side deck option that you rarely draw with the 1 copy, but can easily search with the 3 copies of Witch. So, great card in this deck. We play a Gores. Essentially what you do with this is if you have Card Troopers or Witch, you often leave your opponent with the impression that you're defenseless if they kill your 1 monster. Well, first of all, they're floaters, so you get something in return when they get killed. And then, if you drop Gores, you get Gores and a token. Now imagine this scenario. To make it better, if you set Witch first turn, and then you have Gores in your hand, your opponent kills your Witch, you banish Psychic Commander, the level 3 tuner monster. They assume you have nothing else, and if they brought out a couple monsters, they can now attack you directly. You drop Gores, get your free token, and all of a sudden next turn when you bring out your Psychic Commander at level 3, 3 plus 7 makes a Leo for you. Imagine having a Gores and a Leo second turn and your opponent can't do anything. When they have themselves open because they tried to attack you. Gores turns the tables really quickly in a deck that doesn't play traps, and of course the reason you don't play traps in this deck is because you have Card Trooper milling. You really don't want to have cards that you would not want to mill. Traps obviously being the specific case here. The reason I chose spells over traps is mainly because Natural Landwaste wins games on his own by sending spells to the grave to negate monster effects. And so when half of the deck is spells, you're probably going to have that condition met every time you summon Landwaste, and that was the goal. So spells are simply more valuable in this deck because of the Natural Landwaste. And we play some other cards that will act as pseudo traps, like Max C, Gores, as you can see. So we have Instant Fusion. This thing increases the consistency of the deck by bringing out any one of these 3 fusion monsters. These are all different types, meaning Dichotomy is always live with them. And then we have essentially every level from 3 to 5. So if you draw any tuner monster, Instant Fusion makes it a Naturia. You can also use it with Teleport for crazy synchro summons of anything from 5 to 8. And sometimes you can even use it to just bring up your levels towards something like Leo. So Instant Fusion just adds consistency to the deck. And personally, I'm playing this thing before it gets hit because of Nodin. Nodin's obviously not out in the TCG yet, but when that thing comes out, I have this bad suspicion that Instant Fusion is going to get hit in some way, and I won't be able to use this card that's become a little pet of mine that has been in all of my decks. So I'm just trying to use it as much as I can, and I feel like it's a good fit in this build. We also have duality. Basically, I mentioned little stepping stones or like safety areas. Essentially, it's if you're drawing into Max C or Gores, and you can still set Witch, set Card Trooper, or summon it or whatever, you still have tons of plays without duality preventing you from special summoning. You can even search out your Grandsoil to special summon later, which means you won't mill him out with Card Trooper. You prepare him with the graveyard being loaded to 5, and then you can drop him in multiples potentially because duality helps you grab more Grandsoils than you normally would. So the whole idea is draw filtering is really important in this deck because you want to mill as much as you can up to 5. You want to get Grandsoils first, and you don't want to mill Grandsoil. So duality helps modulate that just a little bit. The reason I'm playing Stardust Dragon over Stardust Spark Dragon is essentially, since I'm not playing Vanity's Emptiness, 1, because of extreme costs, and 2, because the Naturias and just some of my synchros don't work as well with the cards as Clifford's or Xyz monsters do. I ultimately decided, hey, Stardust Dragon's still a good catch-all against Moral Attack, against Trap Tricks, against Lightsworns, just a variety of destruction cards that make random decks viable are stopped by this card, so I felt it's a better catch-all than something like Stardust Spark Dragon. Yes, you can use Stardust Spark Dragon in a generic sense as well, but I have this guy who basically does just that. So, Mech-Whipped Angineer is a rank 3 Xyz monster, so he's very easy to bring out with Witches and Commanders, and even Instant Fusion. And what you do is you detach a material from him to switch any one monster you have to defense position, and that monster is immune from all destruction for the turn. So, imagine you have Psyblocker, you're playing against Harpies. This has happened before. You call Harpy Lady. They can't do anything, right? If you have an Angineer out, and you use Angineer's effect, detach a material, switch Psyblocker to defense, they can't even attack you with anything else that they may bring out. Meaning, now you have another free turn of calling whatever you want. Maybe this is something else in this case. Grandsoil is not destroyed. Or, better yet, one of the best options with this is Leo and Angineer. Can't be targeted except during your opponent's main phase 2. Makes it so it cannot be destroyed. How many cards do you know of that banish or spin back to the hand or deck without targeting? Not that many. There are some cards that'll send things to the graveyard, let's say, without targeting, but very, very rare. So if you can bring these two out, which is pretty easy considering, bring him out with Redox or Gores, and bring him out with any of your level 3s, all of a sudden you got this 2-card impenetrable combo, or at least you keep Leo alive long enough to win you the game. So that is my take on Grandsoil Psychics. You have the deck profile, so if you want to play on DevPro or DN, you can take this list, try it out, tweak it for yourself, and see how you like it. Also, whether you play this deck or not, be sure to let me know in the comment section down below what you think of the choices, competitively or casually. Just what do you think of the deck overall? I'd like to know your thoughts. And look forward to 2 more deck profiles. One involving a fun bunch of cards, still Psychics. One I have named Plant Synchro, essentially. Synchro with a P-S-Y, of course, like Psychic. And then we have another top secret Psychic deck that I will not yet mention until the deck is complete when I receive the cards for it. So hope you guys enjoyed this video and are looking forward to the next few. This is JDGaming, and I'll see you guys next time.